Have you ever noticed how the people who talk the most about their money seem to have the least of it? Or how the moment you announce a plan out loud, it starts to feel a little less urgent, a little less yours? What if the way you speak about money is quietly dismantling the very discipline you're trying to build? There's a peculiar thing that happens when you tell someone you're saving for something. You feel a small rush of satisfaction, almost like you've already done it. The announcement itself carries weight. It feels like progress, and in that moment, something inside you relaxes just enough that the actual work becomes slightly harder to do. This isn't about secrecy or shame. It's about something more mechanical. Every time you verbalize a financial intention, you're giving your brain a taste of the reward it would get from completing it. And your brain doesn't distinguish very well between talking about discipline and practicing it. The dopamine release is real either way. So you get a little hit of accomplishment without the accomplishment, and the edge that was supposed to drive you forward dulls just a bit. People don't usually notice this erosion because it doesn't happen all at once. You don't announce a savings goal and then immediately blow the money. It's subtler. You announce it, feel good, and then a week later, when the moment comes to actually transfer that money, there's just a little less internal pressure, a little more room for negotiation with yourself. The urgency has leaked out through the conversation you already had. And it's not just about your own psychology. The moment you speak a financial goal into a social space, you invite input. Some of it will be supportive, some of it will be skeptical, some of it will be disguised as advice, but will actually be the other person working through their own discomfort with what you're attempting. And now, you're not just managing your own discipline, you're managing their reactions, their doubts, their projections. You're defending a plan that didn't need defending. You're explaining a choice that didn't need explanation. What happens next is predictable. You either stiffen and become defensive, which burns energy you didn't need to spend, or you soften and start second-guessing, which introduces noise into a decision that was clear before you shared it. Either way, the center of gravity shifts. The plan is no longer just between you and reality. It's now between you, reality, and everyone who has an opinion about what you should be doing. There's a reason why people who build wealth over decades tend to be quiet about it while they're building it. Not because they're hiding, not because they're ashamed, but because they've learned, often without realizing it, that silence protects momentum. It keeps the plan clean. It keeps the internal negotiation simple. There's you, there's the goal, and there's the gap. No audience, no performance, no need to manage how it looks. Talking about money often functions as a substitute for dealing with it. If you're anxious about your savings rate, it's easier to tell someone you're working on it than to actually open the spreadsheet and face the number. If you're worried about debt, it's easier to discuss your repayment plan than to make the next payment. The conversation feels productive. It feels like you're taking it seriously, but it's not action. It's rehearsal, and rehearsal doesn't compound. This is especially true with big decisions. The person who's quietly been maxing out their retirement contributions for 5 years doesn't need to tell you about it. The person who just started last month and is anxious about whether it's the right move will. And that anxiety, once spoken, doesn't go away. It multiplies. Because now they're not just anxious, they're anxious and aware that other people know they're anxious, which adds a layer of social performance to something that should have been private and mechanical Silence isn't about being secretive. It's about protecting the thing you're building from the noise that doesn't help it grow. Most financial advice, most opinions, most commentary from people in your life is well-meaning, but not well-informed. They don't know your full picture. They don't know your risk tolerance, your timeline, your past mistakes, or your private goals. And when you invite them in by speaking too soon, you're asking them to comment on something they can't fully see. The advice you get won't be bad because they're careless. It'll be bad because it's incomplete. And incomplete advice, when you're vulnerable, can feel more authoritative than it deserves to. There's also the issue of accountability. People assume that telling others about a goal creates accountability, and sometimes it does. But just as often, it creates the opposite. Because once you've told someone, the goal becomes part of your identity in their eyes. And if you fail, you're not just failing privately, you're failing in front of them. That added pressure doesn't always make you more disciplined. Sometimes it makes you more fragile. You start avoiding the goal because you're avoiding the shame of being seen failing at it. The people who move in silence aren't avoiding accountability. They're creating a different kind. They're accountable to the result, not the announcement. They don't need external validation to stay on track because the track itself is the validation. Every month the number goes up, every year the balance grows, and that's the only conversation that matters. No one needs to know. The wealth doesn't care if it's celebrated, it just accumulates, and here's the part that's hard to accept. Most of the time, when you talk about money, you're not looking for advice. You're looking for permission. Permission to spend. Permission to wait. Permission to take a risk. Permission to play it safe. And the moment you go looking for permission, you've already handed over a piece of your agency. Because now the decision isn't fully yours. It's a negotiation between what you want and what you think they'll approve of. Silence keeps that agency intact. It lets you make the decision in full isolation from social pressure, from comparison, from performance. You're not wondering how it sounds. You're just watching what it does. And over time, that produces a kind of clarity that talking never will. This doesn't mean you should never discuss money. There are moments when advice is necessary, when collaboration is required, when transparency serves a real function. But those moments are rarer than most people think. And the rest of the time, what feels like productive conversation is just friction. It's the tax you pay for wanting to be seen making good choices instead of just making them. The real advantage of silence is that it lets compounding happen without interference. Financial progress isn't built in moments of big decisions. It's built in the accumulation of small, repeated, unglamorous actions. And those actions don't need an audience. They don't need encouragement. They don't even need acknowledgement. They just need to happen. And the quieter you are about them, the less resistance you'll face from others and from yourself. People often confuse visibility with progress. They think if no one knows they're doing something, it doesn't count. But wealth is built in private. It's built in spreadsheets no one sees, in transfers no one notices, in decisions that never make it into conversation. And by the time it becomes visible, it's not a plan anymore. It's a result. And results don't need to be defended. They just are. So the question isn't whether you should talk about money. The question is whether talking about it is helping you build it or helping you avoid building it. Because most of the time, the person who's talking about the thing is the one who hasn't done it yet. And the person who's done it has already moved on to the next quiet decision. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's next.